Hi, you guys. I am Safira Sanders, CEO and Artistic Director of Edit Code Incorporated. Today, I'm so happy to bring you guys another installment of the From Local to Global series. And today I have a Mr. James Stanton. I'm going to be discussing with him all of the great opportunities that he has along the way. He is the founding partner of Top Flight Foundation. He's done a lot in the nonprofit sector, as well as just helping develop and implement different strategies with different companies. We're going to cover a lot of a lot of topics today, everything from goal setting, as well as minorities in the import and export business. So before we get to like our really great and in-depth conversation, of course, I have to thank our amazing sponsors. The first being Port of Tacoma. Thank you so much for this opportunity. If you have already not checked out the Port of Tacoma website, please do. They have a lot of great resources and just opportunities for other entrepreneurs such as myself and also you too that want to enter into the global economy and just all around learn what is going on in the Port of Tacoma. As a small business, especially one that is dealing with any international goods, you want to make sure that you're staying abreast on all that information, and the Port of Tacoma has it for you. Second, I want to thank William Factory Incubator. I myself am a member of William Factory Incubator. I cannot tell you the amount of resources that I have been granted for my small business, not only to help me develop as a professional and as a small business owner, but also just as a leader within my own community and with my team and my staff. They're a great organization to touch base with if you have any questions. They're able to guide you from everything, even where to start if you have an idea, all the way if you're a legacy company, you're kind of just looking for that additional component to help you take you to the next level. William Factory Incubator can do that for you. And I'll go ahead and link the description of what they can do, their link, their resources, all in the description box. Last and totally not least, we have Traction Space, which I am also a member of. Traction Space is an accelerator as well as a co-oping space. They do everything from your registered agent. If you're setting up a business here in Washington State, you know you need a registered agent. They're able to provide those services for you, as well as C-level mentorship opportunities. So that way, again, you're able to learn from people where they have actually done the things that you might aspire to do. Again, all of their information will be in the description box, as well as the way to contact me if you want to know my personal experience with all of my 3 sponsors. A cool way and just like a really good resource to use. There's so many resources here in Tacoma, you guys, and the From Local to Global series is here to bring that to you. So now that we got the business out the way, let's get straight into our conversation with James. He's going to talk to you guys about from everywhere, starting from his background, again, goal setting, as well as minorities in the import and export business. So with that said, James, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Glad to be with you.
Good, James. I'm really glad to have the opportunity to be speaking with you, not just today, but throughout the last, I think, 2 weeks or now. We've had some great extended conversations, and I want you to tell my audience all about your background, what got you started, what are you excited about in your past, and kind of just where you are today. Let's start there.
Well, I use the theme of I'm the son of sharecroppers. Both my parents are from North Carolina. They both started working at the age of 3, and they did sharecropping, the tobacco, peanuts, and crops of that sort, working from sun up to sundown 6 days a week.
Absolutely.
And my dad came to the conclusion that that was a system that would have kept him in virtual poverty. He was one of 16 kids. And so he left, went to Pittsburgh, got a job in the steel mills. My mother, brother, and sister stayed in the Carolinas. He sent money back, and after 3 years, they moved up there. I'm one of 9 kids. And my parents, their whole quest was to make sure that their kids got an education and full opportunity. And that's why they went north. So by the time my dad was 50 years old, he was debt-free and owned 3 homes.
Yes.
All right. He had 3 years income in the bank when he died. He was dead and took care of my mother. My mother outlived him by 6 years. Her lifestyle didn't change one bit because of the economic security that he set up. Now, these are 2 people with a 3rd grade education. And yet 9 kids got an education, got entree into the middle class lifestyle. But we learned financial discipline, we learned personal discipline. And despite the circumstances with Jim Crow and the Black codes and all these things that disenfranchised them from economic opportunity, they made the best with what they had. That is the lesson that I have taken through my life. And I worked 23 years for other people. I started off in General Motors as a clerk in the design engineering department. I was the first Black person in the history of the company there in Pittsburgh to work in that department.
Yeah.
And they had a program called General Motors Institute, where you work 6 weeks, then you go to school 6 weeks. And within a 6-year period of time, you would have a degree and you were prepared to run an automotive plant, right? So I didn't finish that program because they went from designing cars every year to every 5 years, and there was just a total shift in industry.
Yeah.
But from that gave me the foundation of how to function. And one of the things I learned is set your life up in 5-year increments.
Right.
So in 1969, we were working on 1974 models. Well, I applied that in my life, that I'm working in 5-year increments, that if it's 2020, what is my life going to be in 2025? When you make the big decision, all the small decisions then align themselves. And then anything that's taking you towards your goal, you pursue. Anything taking you away from your goal, you reject. You give it no time, right? That's include of any people you interact with.
Right.
Is this person, right?
No,
is this person taking me towards my goal? If
absolutely.
they're not, they get none of your time.
Absolutely.
Right? And I work with 23 schools here in the Los Angeles area. Most of the kids have a 3.5 and above grade average. The key is to orientate them into entrepreneurship and to teach them how to structure their education so that it can get them towards your goal. But if you don't have the goal 5 years from now, you could spend several years wasted in areas where it's not going to be beneficial.
Absolutely, right? Absolutely. And if I could just jump in for a real quick, James, I'm so glad that you touched base on that with our audience, because I know that you and I have had conversations about 5-year goal setting. And like, I literally have been on the phone with you, gotten off the phone and said, let me go back and look at my 5-year plan, because just like the energy that you have and what you bring to the table, I was so like just charged up to make sure I had my stuff together that I went back and double checked. And I kid you not, like after the conversation we had, I was able to see so many different holes within that 5-year plan that I needed to tighten up. And that's one of the reasons why I was so excited to speak to you, and why I think my audience is so going to, really benefit from this conversation, because sometimes that 5-year plan is not necessarily a part of the business conversations that you had. A lot of times people are like, our mentors want us to kind of focus on like the first year, or like maybe even depending on where you are with your company, your exit strategy. But I think that having that 5-year plan of part of the entire conversation makes it so much more beneficial when you start to do your projections, what products you're going to bring to market, who you want to market to. And that conversation is so important. With that said, what strategies do you use in order to produce the best 5-year plan or like goals? So kind of just take me how your process would go to development those plans and those goals.
Well, the next step is 5 years and then 5 areas of your life, right? So the first area would be spiritual, or we can slash that ethics. What are your core ethics? What are your I will not do this, right? Okay. So what kind of responsibility do you take on within the context of your family? Do you look after your grandparents? You look after your aunts, your uncles? Do you feel a sense of responsibility to honor the generation that went before you, whose shoulders you stand on? All right, you look around your neighborhood. Are there elderly people, disabled people? You take the garbage out for them? Do you run shopping errands for them? Living a life of service. Mm-hmm. And when you start there, then that can translate into how you function in business. That will translate to what areas of business, that businesses that are sustainable or businesses that give service. You serve and you want to do something that can be replicated, that people need on a regular basis. But having your core ethics in line will drive the type business that you go into, or the type and how you conduct business and the people that you do business with. Second thing would be financial. How do you view money? Learn to save. I was trained to save 15 cents of every dollar that I make, you save that. Pay yourself first. And then you live off of what you have after you've paid yourself. And then once you put that money in savings, it doesn't exist anymore. All of your decisions, what you're going to do with, is independent of your savings. Get in the habit of being a saver, right? If you have savings, then you don't have to go and ask to borrow money, right? I've never denied myself a loan.
Right. You got to coin
you never
that.
want to be denied.
Right.
Right. Be your own banker. All right. Again, something else that I learned from my dad. Okay. How do you view credit? Is credit something that you use as cash, so you don't carry around a lot of cash? So you use the credit in the month, you pay that off. Now you're not paying interest. But learning that financial discipline, learning to deny yourself, learning to again, 5-year goals. Okay, if you want to buy something, then set up a plan to save that. And then once you reach that goal, go pay cash for it. Okay, but understanding money, it's a tool. It's like a hammer. It can be used to build, it can be used to tear up. Another thing is emotional. Are you a pessimist or are you an optimist? Is the glass half full or is the glass half empty? And one other thing people don't get, you can always add more to the glass.
Right.
So again, what is your thought process? Are you a solutions-oriented person, or are you the person, oh man, I knew that wasn't going to work. Boy, why did I even try that? Again, we are what we think. So
Absolutely.
controlling your thoughts, right? Being an optimist. Physical. Do you take care of yourself? The most important tool and resource that you have is your body. Right. So don't put anything in it that's going to break you down. Okay. Smoking, abusing alcohol, drugs, promiscuous sex. Don't do that. If you ruin your health, nothing else matters because you're done.
Absolutely.
So be in the habit of exercising. If it's nothing else but walking a mile every other day. I was an athlete, so I lifted weights, and I went from 125 to 165 pounds in 3 years, put 40 pounds of solid muscle on myself with a 2% body fat. And I played sports, and I literally was knocking people out. Okay. I played on a championship team that went undefeated. And to this day, the picture of our team is above the auditorium of that high school 52 years later. And I'm still friends with those people because we bonded together. Athletics is a great way. Take care of your health, right? Then integrity, honesty, respect of other people, having a personal code of conduct that's consistent with the way that you act. You're the same person, whether somebody is watching you or if they're not watching you, okay? That's character, all right? You can't build a sustainable business if you're a low character person, and you don't want to work with people that are low character.
Absolutely.
Again, you want to build a business that is sustainable, right? And so when you do that, then you get down to sexual, all right? You can't discipline yourself in sex, you won't be disciplined in other areas of your life, okay? Getting married, delaying having children until after you marry. Before I got married, I had 6 years income in the bank. I owned 2 cars that were paid for. My apartment was completely furnished. And my wife, when we got married, she brought her toothbrush and her clothes. Okay? And we delayed having our children for the first year. After that, we had our son. Then we had our daughter 2 years later. We lived off of one salary so that my wife was a full-time mother. We didn't use daycare. We didn't need daycare. We were the foundation for our family. They received our ethics. They received our morals. And that was the foundation. Once both kids were in school, then my wife started working. And having disciplined ourselves living off the one salary, we banked her salary. Okay. So, if you take a family with making $20,000 a year, 2 people get married, that's $40,000, right? In 40 years, that's $1.6 million that runs through that household. So don't talk to me about poverty in America. It comes down to discipline.
Absolutely.
So that's the foundation.
So with that said, with discipline being, so it sort of seemed like, kind of the foundation that's carried you, being disciplined with your finances and your career. Do you have any kind of like task oriented things that are, approaches that you can give other people that are maybe struggling with being disciplined or having self-control in those particular issues with like finances or maybe like how they schedule their day?
Well, you want to segment your life. When I worked 5 years in 5 different industries for other people. So I worked in automotive, I worked in steel, I worked in construction. We used to build homes, masonry construction. I worked with computers when they first came out, Commodore 64s, IBM PCs, Apple. And so I've been in 8 different industries, and that gives me 8 different ways of looking at things. And what I tell folks is that you get your paper and you go with a job, you look at the strengths and weaknesses of that company. Work for other people. Mm-hmm. And when you identify their weaknesses, then you keep a notebook of what that weakness is. You do your job.
Absolutely.
But you now are building a notebook for when you become an entrepreneur. The days where you're going to work 40 years from somebody and retire and get the gold watch, that's over. Yeah. Most people from now are going to work between 5 to 8 different jobs in their lifetime. And by the time you get to be your mid 40s, they're going to dump you irrespective of your education and go get another kid with the same degree. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then work them for 20, 25 years. So ultimately, you're going to spend probably the last third of your life as an entrepreneur. Prepare for that. So you got your idea book, and then you figure out a way how to do that better. All right. That in turn will give you some ideas as to what areas that you can go into and run a business that will be successful.
Absolutely. So because we're kind of getting close on a little tight on time, and I want to touch base with you on like 2 major areas of your life. One being Top Flight. Can you explain what Top Flight is to my audience, as well as like any different, basically just like what is Top Flight? Give us, how the story of how you got started and where you are today.
Yes, Top Flight, we develop, educate, empower, nurture, and vet businesses who in turn empower other businesses for the communities for which they are in. We want to facilitate a level of excellence that is the standard in anything that you do. Additionally, we facilitate opportunities through our association with youth businesses, youth business ownership. That's the focus. That's why we work with the schools, right? To get this down to them before they come out. All right. Ownership is the key. Being an entrepreneur, being in control of your circumstances, that in turn allows you to accomplish what it is that you really want to do in life. Business ownership also builds character. It builds the families. This sustains communities because now you can be a job provider, not a job requester. All right. And so when you can do that, and when the people in your community see people that look like them that are successful and enjoying the fruits of this country, that in turn empowers them. Well, if they can do that, I can do that. Right. But they need to see people looking like them doing that in their communities. This ownership also then allows us to support our educational systems. Our focus is on STEM education. We've gone from an agricultural to an industrial to an information age. Science, engineering, technology, and math, that's the way of the world. That's the competition you're going into. You must be trained to do that. Absolutely. And then know how to translate that into a way of making life. When I was coming up, they steered us away from the higher math classes. Listen, you Black guys, you don't need that, because you're just going to go and work with your hands all your life. So you don't need calculus. You don't need trig. Right? So literally, they steered us away from that. But this country can no longer ignore the minorities of this country, because the minorities are going to become the majority. We must be educated and be able to participate fully, and that's in the best interest of the nation. We're all in this boat together.
Absolutely.
So that's what Top Flight does. I took that when I worked for the Material Handling Institute, which is anything to do with the movement, stores, tracking, retrieval of materials. I handled their trade show. I did business in 125 countries. And I worked with the US consulates, and I wrote a monthly newsletter that went out all over the world. This is before the internet. And then I put together a video that cost us $10,000 to produce. It generated $1 million of new revenue. Took them from 2 million to 10 million in 5 years. Okay. So, so having done that and having interacted with people and worked with the governments, I worked with the Reagan White House, right? And worked with the other consulates and other presidents. I even worked with the FBI and CIA because at that time communism was still going. So it's possible to do that, but this is the framework. And then we in turn are taking these companies and we help them progress. We work with the Dartmouth Amos Tuck program, where we take high performing minority businesses, getting them there. So then they will have the additional structure to scale themselves, to go from 300,000 to 1 million to 10. We have some that are doing $1 billion.
Mm-hmm. No, that's nice. And I think, as a Black-owned business, a woman-owned business, and I'm a product of STEM too, like it's definitely really cool to kind of have and be a part of all these different organizations that can help and sort of like give some guidance. And I'm glad that I was introduced to Top Flight as well as you too. So we have a little bit of time left. So do you want to maybe like give a shout out to where people can find you on your website or just different, Instagram or TikTok or whatever you're doing these days?
Yes.
Just let my audience know what's the best way to contact you and be a part of Top Flight. If it's a good.
You can reach our website on www.patreon.com/Top Flight LLC.
Perfect. And
right?
you guys, I'm going to make
sure also,
that. Sorry, James. No, go ahead.
Okay. You can also Google me. Just Google James Staton, Staton Jr. And then that will bring up my LinkedIn profile, and also will give you the details on my company, what we do. We also have a Facebook page, and we have a video that I did with the William Factory back in 2013. That's how I met Tim. And then we talked about these things, and we hadn't been in touch. And then he came back and says, Jim, we got this global local to global. I think you need to plug in here. And if Tim says it's good enough for Tim, it's good enough for me.
Good. I'm glad that he was able to connect us all. Like I kid you not, like I just super enjoyed our conversations, and you're just such a delight to talk with, and like funny, and a lot of really great insight to not only my company, but now you're able to speak to our audience. And I'm really confident that they're going to get a lot of great just insight, not only into your organization, but just your story. That's what really captivated me about you, like your story and how you really made it so family oriented as well as being career driven at the same time. So I truly just enjoyed our time together.
Excellent. And let me tell you that I want to put it out here publicly. Tim is my mentor. I love this guy. They don't come any better. He's a true advocate for the small business person.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, I couldn't be more appreciative that he was able to connect us, and we'll continue to work together, and I'll continue to learn more about Top Flight and anything that myself or Edit Code can do. I'm always up to it. So before I kind of close everything out here, is there any lasting remarks, anything you want to say just to the audience regarding global, whatever you got on your mind, James, like you want to say something before we head out?
The key is, if you believe it, you can achieve it. But you have to be convinced. You have to know your value proposition, because if you don't, then no one else is going to accept that. Know what value you bring and be service oriented. Always think in terms of WIIFM. What's in it for me?
Right.
Have that in your mind when you're talking to any prospect, and gear your conversation towards what's the benefit to them. How is this going to improve my business? How is this going to reduce my costs? How is this going to improve my efficiency? How is this going to give me the return on my investment of income? How can I sustain this if I have a relationship with you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's a great way to close out this episode, this installment of From Local to Global. Again, James, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for speaking to my audience and just passing on that great knowledge that you have. I will definitely, for you guys, make sure that all his links are in the description box, as well as all the ways you can contact him, all the ways you can contact me. And since we are being sponsored by William Factory, all of those links will be provided, as well as all of my other sponsors. Please feel free to touch base if you guys have any questions or anything else you want to know. So with that said, you guys, we're going to wrap up this episode of From Local to Global. Again, thank you so much, James, and I look forward to speaking with you later.
Thank you.
You.